Okay, so I wanted to give a little bit more information in terms of possible qualitative tools that you could use for your final paper because a lot of what we've discussed already has been quantitative, and I think when most people, sorry, again, my dog, when most people think about research being done at the academic level, a lot of it gets kind of lumped in or thought about in terms of quantitative analysis. But like I mentioned in my video the other video I just posted, there is the whole focus of this final paper is okay. Here's this problem that I'm trying to address or trying to solve or trying to figure out, whatever it might be. That's great. You explain that in your introduction. You use your literature review to kind of set up that foundation and maybe what some current research is that's going on, and how your paper is going to kind of fill the holes that are being left that haven't really been discussed. But what exactly or how are you going to do that? And that's where the methodology comes in, and that's what we want to talk about. So I think this graphic right here, I think will be really helpful for you, right? So it provides 6 possible things that you can do for a qualitative research study. The last one, we're going to try to avoid case studies, but the other ones are great tools that you can use for this paper. So we have the in-depth interview. So one of the most common types of qualitative research methods, it involves a personal interview with a single respondent, provides a great opportunity to capture rich, descriptive data about people's behaviors, motivations, beliefs, etc. We have focus groups. Focus group includes a small number of participants, around 6 to 12, from within your target demographic. That's the other thing you got to figure out. What's your target demo going to be in terms of age, race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, education level, all of those things. You got to figure out what your key demographic is and how you're going to tailor your questions to that demographic, right? So this method collects data through a group interaction. A researcher leads a discussion among the group where the participants share lifestyle, needs, etc. We have ethnographic research, and like if you remember what I've said previously, when you hear ethnography or ethnographic research, just think observation, really intense observation, right? So this is probably the most in-depth observational method that studies people in their naturally occurring environment. That's important to note. It's naturally occurring. So researchers immerse themselves into a particular community, whether it's geographically, it could be just observing them from a distance. But typically it is immersion. It's not just watching from a distance. It's getting not necessarily involved, but following them along, really trying to understand what's going on. And also you're basically trying to understand the behaviors, both verbal, nonverbal, actions, all of those things to get a better idea of what this community is all about. We have action research, right? Usually it's called community-based participatory research, right? So this is a method in which the researcher and recipients belong to the same group or community, right? You as a researcher, it's going even a step further than ethnography. You're not just observing, you're actually becoming a part of this community and participating within that community. Action research is conducted by individuals working with others as part of a community of practice, and this method aims to solve a particular problem. And the last one that I think I wanted to get into, because I think it'd be really helpful, and I will be providing some examples of people who've done this. And in my last video, when I talked about the Foss article, that was an example of this, a content analysis, right? It includes interpreting words and images from a variety of documents, music, or other types of media, aims to find out how the words and images are used and in what context, and allows you to draw conclusions about a hidden culture or behavior. Now, when it comes to a content analysis, there are some things you need to think about, because there are 2 primary different ways of doing a content analysis, right? So I'm going to pull up this graphic here. So there is a textual analysis, and then there is a discourse analysis, right? So text, you're looking at the written form. So textual analysis, you're looking at the written form of communication information, which is non-interactive in nature, right? It has already been written or it's already been said, but you're looking at the written version of a speech, right? Agent, when they say agent, that's the researcher. You yourself are not an integral part of doing a textual analysis. You're really looking at the communication that's being involved, the words, the structure, different things like that. It is non-interactive in nature. Grammatical cohesion and structure of sentences are analyzed, usually in the written form. Some of the examples of things you might look at are press reports, street signs, documents, again, if you are looking at the printed version of a particular speech. right? And you're looking for what emerges from this textual analysis. Then we have a discourse analysis, and that's a little bit different because discourse, it opens things up just a great deal, right? So spoken, written, visual, audio, communicating information that is interactive in nature, right? It is dynamic, whether you're looking at TV shows, movies. There's a number of different things that you can do when it comes to discourse analysis, right? The agent is crucial, right? You can mention your own beliefs, your own background, and how that's going to influence your ability and your kind of perspective in analyzing this discourse, right? It's interactive in nature. The agent or the researcher involved in the communication, or is involved in the communication, the social purpose and the medium utilized, all of those things are looked at, right? The actual purpose versus with a textual analysis, you're just looking at the words and what is being said, blatantly being said. But when it comes to discourse analysis, you are looking at what potential social change could be happening because of this discourse or because of what's going on in this particular, whatever form you're looking at. It can be either written, verbal, visual, or audio form. Some examples of that are dialogues, conversation, interactions in audio-visual programs. Like I said, it could be TV shows, movies, any number of things that it could be. Now, taking it one step further, and as you try to figure out what you might use, there's something called a critical discourse analysis. Anytime you hear the word critical, think about the word power, because that's what people are doing when they're doing a discourse analysis, whether they're looking, again, at TV shows or movies or what Karen and Sonia Foss did in that other video I showed you where they were looking at the magazine shoot, where they're looking at age as a particular, that was kind of the focus of their paper. When you're talking about something critically, you are looking at power structures, right? Whether we're looking at how different power imbalances might exist when it comes to sexual orientation or gender or race, any of these things. And I know when obviously there's like a big hoopla going around about critical race theory, because there's this misguided belief that when you talk about critical race theory, you are just blatantly just calling a bunch of people racist, but that's not the intent behind critical race theory. So if you take exactly what I just said about just critical discourse analysis, we're doing the same thing, right? When it comes to critical race theory, you're looking at something for how there are some inherently racist institutions that disadvantage other people over others, right? So all that being said, there are all these opportunities and all these different avenues that you can choose for in terms of your tools that you're going to be using for your methodology, right? So you can say you're going to be doing a qualitative paper where you're going to be addressing this issue qualitatively, and you're going to be doing so by using an interview, or you're going to be using an ethnography, or you're going to be doing a critical discourse analysis or a content analysis. And again, the benefit of this paper is you're not actually going to have to do that thing, right? You can do a minimal amount of research so you can understand what that type of content analysis or a textual analysis is, so you can just say how you intend on looking at a particular thing. But you're not going to actually have to do it, right? You could say, I want to look at, a show like The Office, and you want to see what emerges by doing a textual analysis. Sorry, not a textual analysis, a content analysis of the first season of The Office to see, office dynamics and how they're played out on television, something along those lines, right? Well, then you have to look at what communication or leadership research has already been done on that, and you explain that and go into that in your literature review, and then you explain in your methodology, I'm doing a qualitative approach to this study, and I'm going to be doing a content analysis on The Office. But be specific, because if you use the method I showed you in the one of the other videos where I showed you how to get to the library database, or if you just use Google Scholar and type in The Office and content analysis, you might see that there is a lot of people who've already looked at that. So what is your specific thing that you're going to be looking at? Are you looking at the dynamics of, if you want to look at race, if you want to look at sexuality, if you want to look at gender, if you want to just look at nonverbal communication? Like, there are a number of different things that you could look at, and you're doing a content analysis, which is, for me, I like doing those because you're not having to deal with people, right? You're not having to go through IRB and get approval for things. You can just watch that first episode of The Office and take note of anything that you think is emerging, and make these and trying to find these themes that are playing out as the season goes on. So wanted to go that was the main focus of what I wanted to do here, show you some potential options that you might have as we start getting closer to this final paper. But again, kind of like the I know I repeat myself at the end of all these videos, but if you have questions, please do not hesitate to drop by during my office hours. I am going to be dropping a lot of resources into the assignments resource folder, both in terms of writing. I will also put a folder within that folder of sample papers, both, kind of larger, like established scholars within various fields, but I'm going to try to see if I can get my hands on some graduate level papers as well. Hopefully I can get those, but at the very least I'll be putting up some sample papers so you can get an idea of what some of these things might look like. That way hopefully I can give you a little bit more guidance when it comes to the final paper.